Once again, we are back. That's right. Another episode 6 of You're Wrong, Here's Why. Some fun topics today I'm very excited about. We're going to get into some news topics as well, but I'm really excited about some of the debate here because the more I look into some of these topics, the more I want to shift from side to side. And so that's why I brought some great people along with me to kind of help sway the situation. So let's first talk to Francisco Cangiano, who is in Puerto Rico right now with Cine Express. Thank you very much for being here, first and foremost.
Derek, thank you for asking me to come by and participate in your show. I mean, I think it's a great idea for what's going on right now in the world. So thank you again, and it's nice to meet Forrest, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you because the main idea of this is to create a debate and topic that isn't going to start a war, that isn't going to have a bunch of people, with issues going on in the world right now. Us arguing over whether Hellboy 2 is better than Hellboy 1 is a fun side project for sure, as well as some other stuff too. So I'm very excited to have you. How is the state of entertainment in Puerto Rico right now?
Oh my God, it's basically dead. I mean, there's no shows in production, or like local TV, only news and stuff. Not much entertainment, and the movie theaters are closed. Like this is our 5th week on complete shutdown.
Right.
You can only go to the supermarket maybe, or to the pharmacy and stuff. So yeah. Getting cabin fever, and thanks to stuff like this, it helps. But we're safe home, just streaming TV, no sports.
Has Netflix taken over?
We got Netflix. At least we got Netflix, Disney Plus for the girls. Hulu, Amazon Prime.
Are they rolling out the Spanish content as frequently as they are the English content right now? You think?
No, not at all.
Far from it.
No, yeah, not at all. They
I gotcha.
They got some shows that they like to hear in Spanish and stuff, but mostly all the shows they watch on Netflix or Disney Plus and stuff like that, they listen in English and stuff. So,
I gotcha. Or subtitles too. So
at least we got streaming and stuff. So yeah.
Very true.
That helps. Yeah.
All right, cool. Going to the other side here, Mr. Forrest Hartman, thank you for joining as well up in Northern California. How's California right now? I know all these states are talking about opening up or what we should do. And I'm in Las Vegas right now, and our mayor is now the spotlight of what you should not say on news channels. So how is everything up in your way?
Well, I mean, we're kind of the opposite in Northern California, just like Francisco was saying, and very nice to meet you, Francisco. Everything's been shut down here for weeks. And so this is probably about the only time Northern California, where I live, which is in a little small town about 70 miles north of Sacramento, is anything like the rest of California. When you say you're from California, everybody imagines you're in Los Angeles, but I'm in far Northern California. We're a little rural area, but now it seems like pretty much all of California is the same. People are sheltering in place and no foreseeable end to it. I mean, our governor basically says, hey, until there's widespread testing, we're staying the course. So
no, I understand. And I understand about the small town. I grew up in a small town in California as well. And there are many of them in California that the best way I can describe them is they're a nice place to live, but you don't want to visit kind of places. I guess that's the best way to explain some of those smaller towns. But thank you very much again. Of course, both of you are with the CCA, so you are Critics' Choice of America, which is fantastic. You are on Action News, and you also have. We met when you were at Reno Gazette, I believe, is when you first started, Forrest. And then Cine Express for FICO, as well as radio and TV too. So I definitely want to bring people who know what they're talking about and who are passionate about it when it comes to the show. So first and foremost, let's get to the news. The news is this. They are talking about, in some of the states, so we don't necessarily want to take the lead in things, about opening theaters again. Now, what is your initial thought on theaters? I mean, as critics, would you go back to a theater now? If they give you an option to see a film in a theater or to see it at home and streaming, would you go back to a theater now? Let's start with Francisco. Fico,
Man,
actually. I gotta start using we're using
Fico. That's okay. Fico,
Yeah.
Francisco, don't worry about it. Man, I honestly, no, not right now. Nope.
How about you, Forrest?
I mean, I know maybe we get screenings and stuff like we usually do, and there's a couple of people down here. It's about like maybe 5 or 10 or less.
Right.
But we see like separate. We're not like together and screens and stuff. So I mean that would work, but for you doing a screening is to release the film. So I mean. No, man. I mean, I would love to go to the theater, but right now I think they shouldn't open, at least here in Puerto Rico and maybe the rest of the world, because the one of the first places I think should have shut down completely was movie theaters, along with like sports events and concerts, because that's like big gatherings, man. Right. And then the whole experience is gathering with people. So, I mean, first off, you got to deal with all the protocols and what are you going to do for security and I mean, and then you that's the factor that goes in is being scared. Like you don't know if you have COVID-19 or you have symptoms and stuff, and then you go and then you come back to your family. It's just like it's not worth it right now. That's what I would say. Like right now.
I understand. Forrest, what's your thought? Have you driven by some empty theaters to come with a kind of longing yourself?
I gotta say I'm dead on with Fico on this one. When I'm not reviewing movies, I'm a journalism professor, so I read an awful lot about what's going on, and it's just too much uncertainty around this thing right now. And I'm with you. I mean, I suppose if it was a screening or something, and there was a way to keep definite social distance, things like that, because on the other side of this, I mean, I really miss going to theaters. That's the way I like to watch movies. That collective experience is something special. But like Fico said, I mean, it just doesn't seem safe when you see, how many cases there are and the really bad outcomes of some of those cases. So I can't say I'd be in a hurry to run back until we have a better grip on this thing.
I agree as well. I was at one of the last screenings before they officially said no more theaters. We're closing everything down. And when I'm in that theater and you hear one person cough 5 rows and 3 over, you're like, oh no, what's happening? What's going to, and I mean, and as we all know, it was like, okay, less than 100 people. Okay. Less than 50 people. Okay. Now there should be 5 people in an area together. And you're like, well, okay, now we're closing down. That's just the way it is. So I do agree with both of you. And even the National Association of Theater Owners also agrees. NATO has said that even though cities are allowing theaters to open, they are not essentially authorizing or backing anything to happen when it comes to theatrical, because theatrical is about releasing nationwide at the same time for it to all happen. So even if a couple of die-hard theater owners want to open something, it doesn't mean that a movie company is necessarily going to roll out new movies just for 10 or 20 theaters throughout the whole country. So I believe that that's something that's never going to be held back as well. And it's something we're going to have to really question as well, because when is it going to be time and when are we going to feel safe? Because as of now, the big benchmark movies that are still coming out, we have Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which is coming out July 17th here in the US, as well as Disney's Mulan, which is July 24th. Yeah. So those are 2 of the benchmarks that haven't moved, that they moved already. So we'll have to see if that's going to be, something that's going to happen. I mean, overall, my thought is they're going to be moved. I just don't see.
It's like you said. Yeah, it's like you said there. Also, there's nothing to show right now. I mean, what are they going to show? Like trolls, or there's nothing to show. So, and like Forrest said, the most important thing that scares me is right now is the lack of testing, at least here in Puerto Rico. I mean, the numbers are low, but really, are they low? Because there hasn't been enough testing, and that's what scares me. And it's not worth it right now to go to the movie theater and bring that home, just without knowing.
My biggest issue with this whole time is that same exact thing. Information is key right now. And when we don't believe the media, we don't believe scientists, we don't believe these people. And the main issue is because everyone is giving partial information because no one has full answers, because we're all still trying to figure it out. And in this day and age of Googling an answer, we have so many issues when it comes to not having, the other side of the equal sign. And that seems to be the problem. Of course, we have our talking heads who will give whatever answer they think is right, whether it is, true, false, or it's something that's going to help them or their company. So I think that's really my main issue is information and having correct information, and then letting people know what is factual and what is not. So the other side to this coin is going to be moving forward. I know the Toronto Film Festival just released a story actually that they are looking to change how they are doing their film festival as well. This is a international film festival, same as Comic-Con is an international comic convention. So you expect a lot of people from other places. So now that they're cutting down on what can happen even in September when this festival happens, what do you think about a film festival that now is stream based? That is, I guess, they had 300 films last year. Most likely it's going to be 150, maybe even 100. So for both of you who probably, I'm guessing, have gone to film festivals before, would you attend a streaming based film festival now? Forrest, to start with you.
I think I would. And you bring up an interesting question, because one thing that I thought of immediately as theaters started shutting down is, wow, I wonder if this is going to lead to some permanent changes. Obviously people in the industry are paying attention to what's happening. And I've also talked to the North American Theater Organization, and most of the major studios have committed to, hey, we're not going to be releasing films online, except during the pandemic. They're all saying they'll go back to regular schedules. But I do wonder what permanent changes might come from this along the lines of like a film festival. And, on the one hand, not having that in-person film festival experience could be a real bummer. But on the other hand, opening up a festival to a streaming type situation could give the festival experience to a whole lot of people that wouldn't otherwise be able to have it. And that seems pretty special. So, sort of like with going back into theaters, I miss them, but I don't want to do it right now.
Right.
The sort of changing that festival experience, one part of me says, oh, that would be a bummer. But the other part of me goes, oh, but look at all the people we'd open it up to. Look at all of the possibilities with the web. And it's kind of exciting.
Right. What's your thoughts, Figo?
I mean, this is an easy one for me. I usually don't do much festivals, especially if I have to travel to the States or international. So, if they do streaming this time around, that's great, because I'm looking forward to that. That, like Forrest said, that's exciting. But if I don't, I'm not sure I would want to go to the theater right now. I don't think I'd be even less sure about going to a festival right now with people, even with social distancing and new protocols and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward. And if they do a web-based festival, it doesn't mean that they can't go back to the thing like how they used to do it for, before. So, they could try and do it. It's a special situation. It's something that has never happened before, and then just go back to it. Critics and people who covered film festivals, I think, could understand that. So I see no problem. First of that, I don't travel to them. So I'll stay home and watch it on streaming.
Right. Well, as someone who goes to a lot of festivals, I went to Sundance this year. I had my bags packed for South by Southwest. I go to Toronto, I go to Comic-Con, I go to WonderCon, I go to CinemaCon. I do probably anywhere from, I don't know, let's say 20 to 30 festivals a year. And that's not counting events as well. And that's the problem, is it's an event. Even if it's called a film festival, it's a huge festival. It's a concert. There are people on lines. We've all been in crowded, overheated theaters where people are sweating and you can feel the humidity off every other person's body because of this kind of thing. And we all push it onto, well, it's art. What are you going to do? So as much as I agree, but at the same time, I worry sometimes about the magic of seeing something for the first time in a theater, having that moment where you're like, this is amazing. I just, imagine seeing Christopher Nolan's movie, on your TV. Don't get me wrong, I'm up to 80 inches on my TV now, which is great, but it is not Dolby surround sound, Atmos amazing, or a screen that is IMAX big. And so like a movie like Tenet, like I just automatically, want and need to kind of watch that in a theater. And so that is something that is my thing. Like someone out there right now is like, well, I need to eat this dish again at a restaurant, or I need to go back to the gym, or I need a haircut or whatever. At the end of the day, like this is my thing. Is like I want to see this movie the way it should be seen, because I think everyone who was part of it deserves for it to be seen that way. But at the same time, movie companies need to release and make money too. So, but you know, because I think we're all on the same page here. You know, we're gonna do what we have to. It is what it is kind of world. So that's where we'll go from here. So, moving on, let's talk about our first topic. This is a sequel war. This is something that is very close to my heart because I love this franchise very, very, very much. Hit that. So first and foremost, let's talk about Hellboy. And Hellboy 2 being better than Hellboy 1. Sequels always have this opportunity where you can essentially say the second one had more money, it had better timing, it had, you know, more characters and more options. But is that something that we are necessarily always going to love first? And that's why Sequel War kind of came about as part of You're Wrong, Here's Why. On one side, we have Fico, saying that Hellboy 2 is better than Hellboy 1. And on the other side, we have Forrest saying, no, you know what? The original, it had more heart. It had maybe a little bit more something that I really enjoyed. So let's start first with Fico. Why is Hellboy 2 better than Hellboy 1?
This was a good one, a good choice to talk about. First off, I agree with Forrest. I mean, in the aspect that I love the first Hellboy, but I love even more the second one, Hellboy 2. So I got that going on, and I think I love both films. I didn't like the newest one they did. I didn't like that at all. So
that's because you're human.
I just wanted to put that in. Just put it in paper. Yeah. I didn't like that.
Well, you're not alone. Trust me. You're very much not alone. So, and that's why I'm not bringing that up at all. Like I don't even want to talk about that monstrosity. Yeah.
You said you love the franchise. You gotta,
I do love the franchise.
You gotta be clear. You gotta be clear.
Some things are, in my world shouldn't be canon. Like even I love the idea of what they try to do. It's like it's like me saying I love hamburgers, but if I get a horrible hamburger, that's not what I'm going to point to as being part of the world of hamburgers. I'm going to be like, that was just a horrible mistake that somebody made. It fell on the ground. They rolled it around in dirt, and then they gave it to me. So that's the way I look at it. And that is what Hellboy was, this newest one was to me. So, but
we're clear now. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I love the first Hellboy. So the second one I love even more because I think it's the first one set up everything and all the toys, and Guillermo del Toro, which I love. And the second one has more space and adds more flavor to expanding and exploring this world that he created with the first one. The second one for me is more fantasy. It's more like a fairy tale. It's even being told like a fairy tale. You're more in Hellboy's brain, like what he's thinking, what he's feeling. He's insecure. I mean, he's pissed that he's hidden away while he's saving the world every time. So he's got some anger issues. Also, he has this love interest with Liz that, spoiler alert, I don't want to say it, but then down the road, he finds out something. So that, tumbles his world. The whole plot, I think it's more mystical than the first one, where we get all this mythology with the world, how it was, and the flashbacks and stuff like that, and King Baylor and truth and the truths that there were after the war. And then you got this villain, Noara, which is a great villain. And what he wants to do, and it's what the greatest villains are, the ones that they think that they're the hero and that they're doing something good. And I think Noara falls into that part that he thinks he's doing good. So I mean, you got all these things going, and like I said, where I love the first Hellboy, I think that expanding and having more time to play in that sandbox and doing more, like having more freedom, especially from the studio, to work with a bigger budget and being more how do you say, have more confidence in playing in that world. I think that's are some of the reasons that Hellboy 2, for me, it works it's better a little bit than the first one. I mean, and you got the creatures and the special effects and the fights, I think, are better than the first one. And you got, you got fairies, you got elves, you got trolls, you even got like a tumor that talks and stuff. You got a lot of stuff. You got a mechanical soldiers. I mean, and the fight against the third act with the fighting and the huge robots, and then you got the main villain who can he can fight. So yeah, he can fight. He's a good fighter, and I think those are the reasons I would say that it's better than the first one. But like I said, I love both of the films. So.
No, and I understand, and I'm someone who is a huge Guillermo del Toro fan. Yeah. Every time I talk to him, he is bubbly. Awesome. He has so much energy. He wants to talk to him. I remember when I talked to him for Pacific Rim when it was about to come out. I was at Comic-Con. He came in. We sat down, and my last question was, "You're about to go and bring a trailer or some footage to all the people in Hall H right now to show Pacific Rim for the first time. What can they expect?" And he looks at me and he smiles and he goes, "Oh, my friend, let me tell you, I have brought such candy for them, my friend. I have brought such candy." And that's who he is. He is the Santa Claus of sci-fi and fun and imagination. So anything he does is pure, and I love him for it. Being as it may, though, his initial ideas are amazing too. And Hellboy was something that brought that character to the forefront. Who the original movie. We have a different color palette. We have more money. We had less money, but we had more I guess, basis story where we're kind of creating who he is. And Ron Perlman, we reintroduce him as showing why that man should be in makeup 99% of the time and everything we could possibly get. I mean, I'll go back to Beauty and the Beast on TV. I mean, the guy's amazing. He's so good. Don't get me wrong. I love Sons of Anarchy and other things too, but you put that man in latex and you're going to have a good time. So let's go over to Forrest now, and let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about Hellboy #1 and why Hellboy #1 is your choice for the better than the sequel.
Sure. Well, this may not be the sort of passionate we're at each other's throat battle that made some of the Siskel and Ebert fights great, because we have a lot of agreement here. I like both of these films quite a bit too. I mean, I think they're both good films, and like you, Derek and Pico, I do not like the new one that just came out. I thought that was pretty much awful. So we probably have more points of agreement than disagreement. That said, I do think the first one is a better film, and the reason I think so is sort of my take on movies and sequels in general. I almost always prefer the original, unless the sequel does something that just sets it head over heels apart for me. For instance, I do think Empire Strikes Back is a better sequel than the original Star Wars. But Hellboy, to me, the original film set so many things up. It set the stage to the point that I don't think we could have had Hellboy 2 without the things that were established in Hellboy 1. We got a little bit more of John Hurt, who I love. That's great. And although by no means do I dislike all the things you're talking about, the production value, the fights and things, but I think sometimes less is more. And we did have a bit less of that, maybe a little more focus on some of the characters and things like that in the first film. And that's really my case for the first film. I don't think you get the second film being what it is without the first film. And also, it sounds like we all love Guillermo del Toro. I've been able to interview him too, and so it's like just a thrill. The guy is so great. I think sometimes, giving a guy like that a little bit less budget makes him do really creative things, with the budget that they have.
That may be true, but then again, he won an Oscar, so give him whatever money he wants.
I'm not saying we should limit his budget.
Right? No, but see, that's something that I understand as well, because last week actually we discussed does a budget affect how you view a film, and my thought is that generally, if there's less of a budget, I want to see more inventiveness. I want to see you using your ideals and what the story is, your characters, even strange new things you can try out to see if you can capture an audience, because sometimes we don't have the Michael Bay explosions on the back burner ready to throw in whenever we need them. So that's one of those things that I definitely have in my mind, especially for someone who loves festival films as well. These indie films, the smarter they are, the way they kind of bring us into the Blair Witch, using such cheap theatrics and jump scares and those things, which work great, and that's the basis of a lot of horror films. But it works for us. It delivers what we want. And so that's definitely something too. When I look at the first one, I remember very vividly watching the first one many times, and also listening to the commentary on the first DVD. They had commentary, and it had Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro talking. And there's things I didn't notice before that, like in that whole film, if you actually watch it, the camera is never 100% still. Even if it's moving slowly, it's always moving. And that's what he always wanted to do. He always wanted to have a feel like you're part and you're just kind of moving along slowly next to the scene. And as you mentioned, of course, the Hellboy 2, Golden Army, it feels like someone said we need to brighten this up a little bit, figure a way to get maybe some more toys or marketing or merchandising. Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, if you look at the color grading, it was so much darker in the first one too. And I don't know if that's a money thing or if that's necessarily because he created the troll market and he needed all those colors to pop, which is understandable. When you have all these elves and people running around, and all these other things going on too. So I think that's one of those things that I definitely did love about 2 as well. When I look at it though, and what I wanted, I guess, both to be, I have to say that, first of all, 2 left me very sad because we're not getting a 3. We're just not going to get it. And so that makes me very sad because I feel like there was a story to come and there was something going to happen. And now it's not even going to happen. So it makes me a little somber just thinking about it. There was some good fights and good stuff too. But at the end of the day, I have to say, I feel like Hellboy 1 was just my heart because I felt like it was the closest to the comic and to who it was and to delivering something new and inventive. It was almost like the first Batman, how Tim Burton brought his own Batman to life. So as much as I want to give it to you, Fico, I'm sorry.
You're going to give the round to Forrest because you ended up sad at the end of the second one? Come on, man.
It's just the way it is. You know what? Sometimes the sequel is better. One day we're going to have the Empire Strikes Back, but let's just be honest. Empire Strikes Back is going to win. But right now, I'm have to say that when it comes to Hellboy, I really would like to say that 2 is better. And I've watched both of them so many times. But number 1, I feel, just has a stronger soul to it and not trying to be so many other things. I mean, we even had to add Seth MacFarlane as a voice to the wispy, smoked boss. And they didn't really move relationship along as much as I would love to. There's a lot of things that didn't change. Abe got a relationship with 2. But I feel like the first one just had a lot of more mysticism and it was dark and the idea of it popping out. So I'm sorry, this one going to Forrest on this one. That's just the way it's going to have to be.
I'm kidding. I'm okay with it. The first
I understand.
One is
we all love
really
it.
Good, yeah.
We'll still go see if, for some reason in some world, Netflix decides to make Hellboy 3 and Gitmo's on. I'm there for that one too. So
that'd be awesome.
Now this is one I feel we are, this is going to be a little more back and forth because this is something that is more of artistic opinion, some almost emotional nature. And that is about a certain director by the name of Terrence Malick. And this man has directed some amazing films, but he is also a man who has a constant, like if he was the Sims character, he'd have a question mark over his head constantly because you don't know what's going to happen next and you don't know who he is or what he wants. And so let's ask the question now. Is Terrence Malick a good director? Is this guy developing things that we feel, I guess, are necessarily good films? What are we... I want to get away from the opinion, but I also want to kind of get to some of these things too. So on one side, we have Forrest, who is a fan of Terrence Malick. He likes the guy. I know you were talking about catching up with it, and people who want to catch up on films means that they like the director, they want to see it, as opposed to just reading an article and going, oh yeah, I agree with that too. But on the other side, not so much for Fico. You're not a big fan of Terrence Malick and the things he does, which is understandable too, because if you look at his list of films, it's easy to go, what, why, huh? I mean, it happens so often that he brings these things out, and then you hear all the back channels of stories from actors and directors and other people who are like, what is he doing? What is it he's doing? And so I guess the question is, where should we start on this? I personally, at times I can look at his films, and if I don't take the time or I'm not in the right headspace, the first word that comes to mind is
the mood,
instinctive and pretentious. Like, it feels like it's a double-sided blade, and he's shoving it to me both. He's like cutting me both sides automatically at the 100% time. So let's start with Forrest first. Why is Terrence Malick a good director? What it is about him and the art he creates that is cinema?
Well, I'm going to say he's not just a good director. I think he's a great director. And I think it's because he approaches a film like a lot of people don't. I mean, to me, his movies are poetry, right? You've got to, spend some time with them. And I say that as somebody who gets that he's not for everybody. To me, he's a little bit like David Lynch. You have to warm up to him. You have to be willing to, just spend time with the films, because some of them do play out. They feel a little long at times. But I think when you look at what he's doing visually, his camera work is, poetic is really the best word. And I think he takes approaches to movies that and genres that not many people take. Say The Thin Red Line came out not long after Saving Private Ryan. Two war movies. I think completely different experiences. And I love Saving Private Ryan, so nothing to diminish that at all. But I think if you watch The Thin Red Line, it's just a completely different type of war film that wants you to think about different ideas, such as how nature is impacted by warfare and things along that lines. And I think Terrence Malick is really good at doing that, at pulling us as viewers in directions that we're not used to going. In some cases, maybe that people don't want to go, which is, right. I think, why he's controversial. And I just love that about him. I don't think there are a lot of directors doing what he's doing, and I like that inventiveness. And maybe I like the pretentiousness, because I certainly see how you can feel.
Well, and it seems to be going farther down the lane. First and foremost, I am not a huge fan of the inner monologue usage, and he tends to use that a lot. It tends to be the inner monologue, and it's not necessarily connected to the story. Which, you've heard different actors who are like, he needs to get a writer. He needs to get someone, because everything he's doing is just like out there, shoot that, shoot this. Let's see what's happening. If you go back to where he started with Badlands was an amazing movie. It showed what he could do, and it showed, a great camera work. Everything was sweeping. Everything was beautiful. And so as you watch this, you're thinking, I really do enjoy, what he's doing and how he's kind of put it together. Martin Sheen, and it was just so good. And that's one of those movies that I look back to. And then another one that just showed his camera work really, really well was Days of Heaven? Is that right?
Days of Heaven.
Days of Heaven. Yeah. Days of Heaven, which, if you look back at that one too, just those fields and the colors and everything about what he was going after was just insane. How great that was, especially for the time, delivering that. But then we get into other movies, and that's, I think, where we get into the questionable nature of things. When you have movies where at the beginning you have a celebrity who thought they were starring, and then as the story goes, I think it was Mickey Rourke or someone, he was the star of a movie, and when he got to the actual junket, which is the event where they talk about the movie and they promote it, they didn't actually, he had, I think it was him or someone else, hadn't actually seen the movie, and the actor finds out who was the lead, finds out they're not even in the movie. So you get cut out of the movie altogether. So there's a lot of times when he'll just cut you out and they'll put the Thin Red Line. Jim Caviezel wasn't supposed to be the lead at the beginning, right? I believe the story goes. So he became the lead through everything that was being shot there too. So it is such a liquid kind of way of shooting and instinctive. And but does that make a good movie or a good director? I mean, does it make a better documentarian? I mean, that's kind of those things I'm kind of questioning. So, Fico, on your side, what are your thoughts when it comes to Mr. Malick?
Again, this one, I don't love Terrence Malick, but it's not that I hate his style or I hate him or his work, because I love some of his work. So for me, it's more like a hot and cold relationship between him and me as a fan. Because like you were saying, you got films like Badlands, you got films like The Thin Red Line, which I love, and the score and the cast. Then you got The New World, and you got The Tree of Life in 2011, which it blew my mind and it really touched me when it came out. It was the best film of the year for me and my top 10. And then after that, he became cold with To the Wonder, which was I think was Ben Affleck, or then Knights of Cups, and then in 2017 he had Song to Song. So I was kind of I wouldn't say pissed off at him, but I was like disappointed in his work with the 3 films following up The Tree of Life, which I understand because this is The Tree of Life, which could be considered one of the best films of all time for some people. So I was kind of disappointed he was in a cold streak for me, and the movies that he was making, he was just like what you were saying, just shoot everything, just rambling, and there's no story there, like you can grab to or connect to when you can compare it to The Thin Red Line or The Tree of Life. So I think that's my problem with him. And then last year he kind of made a comeback with The Hidden Place, which I liked this one. So for me, I wouldn't say he's a great director. He sometimes is a great director with the films he nails them. But then he goes down to maybe a good director or maybe a great documentarian, like you said, Derek, because it feels like that with the movies that he doesn't, that the story isn't strong enough. I think my problem is more like he has a writer on stock, but I think he fires them on the first day. So he then goes and, let's shoot everything, and the actors don't know what's going on. And then he goes into the editing booth, and he's like 3 years doing editing. And then, he comes out with a movie, and then you're like, okay, cool. It's Terrence Malick. I mean,
right.
His style is so marked in pop culture and movies that you like. I mean, you remember Man of Steel when the first trailer hit, which I love Man of Steel. Yeah. And you saw the footage of the things and the laundry outside with the wind blowing and stuff, and the score. It's like that's like Zack Snyder. He's trying to do Terrence Malick. You just go like that's Terrence Malick, Right. And so it's not a problem with his style of cinematography and score and his approach of being different, like Forrest said, which I kind of love. But then again, I think the problem is that the stories he's telling are not strong enough, and the scripts, which I don't think they even exist, that's the problem with him that doesn't make him a great director, and sometimes not even a good one, because he's just like, let's shoot everything. Let's just ramble on. Let's some voiceover, like you said, and just voiceover, and then let's cut the whole thing together and see what happens. And then last year with A Hidden Place, it worked for me. But the 3 films before that, it didn't. So it's a hot and cold.
That's very interesting, because a lot of the films you're mentioning are ones where he kind of has his own road, but he kind of converges back in traditional storytelling again. Because that's a lot of the issues we had with Night of Cups, Song to Song, things like that. It's all about spontaneity, instinctive, getting real life and real moments. And, him coming up to an actor and being like, here, and he just gives him a piece of paper, and the whole character's thing is like, pancakes taste good or something weird or something. And he's like,
you're a ghost. Now you're a ghost.
Yeah, now you're a ghost. And you're like, what does this mean? He's like, I don't know. I was just thinking about it, but you go with that. And you're like, what is happening?
Roll.
And so, his art is character development, but it's character development in a sense that the world, it's a reaction, I guess, world is what he wants. He wants the reactions of everyone. So a Night of Cups with Bayo going to the party, Song to Song with all these people and the way they're interacting and trying to have real moments. And so
Great
some
actors,
people,
everyone.
no, and that's a problem too. We talk about these movies, and I think I want to say the last 7 movies or whatever else, he's had unbelievable names. I mean, you have Christian Bale, you have Gosling, you have Portman, you have so many great people.
A-listers,
A-listers. But what does it say when those movies with those A-list names still don't make more than $500,000? So what does it say about a director then? I mean, we're not, not necessarily, he's not necessarily making it for money's sake, but you need to make money so someone will give you money to make something else again too. Unless you're just the prince, a prince or the king as I am, and you can just throw money at things or whatever. But I mean, that's kind of the thing too. So his he doesn't have a kind of conventional look. Everything kind of just jumps off the rail and he kind of goes from there. And I think that's maybe where the love you have to find it with that love too. As I was mentioning before, he cuts out actors too. In films, Thin Red Line, he cut out Billy Bob Thornton. He cut out Mickey Rourke. He cut out Viggo Mortensen. They were all supposed to be in the film. Into the Wonder, Rachel Weisz, Jessica Chastain was supposed to be in there. Song to Song, Christian Bale was supposed to be in there too. So he is cutting these people out for moments of like, watch the paper bag float through the air and let's see what happens kind of thing. So I understand it and I see that too. So let's just go back here. I guess final arguments now. Forrest, any final thoughts on Terrence Malick and why people maybe just don't understand what he's bringing?
Well, sure, yeah, and I've got to say I agree with Fico a little on the later work. I mean, I do think there was a slip there. I love his earlier work more for sure, but I also agree with like what Fico said. I mean, there's a Terrence Malick style, and the fact that he's so established himself with those early films. That's why I say in part that he's a great director. I mean, there's a Terrence Malick style, and I think there's a lot of directors out there that you can't say that about, right?
Yes.
And so I would agree that not every film he's made is a masterpiece, but I think he's got more what I would call masterpieces than most. And I got to say, Derek, it as a viewer, it doesn't bother me that he cuts actors out. I mean, sort of the artist in me actually says, man, that's kind of cool. You know, to have the guts to say, hey,
Oscar winners,
Jessica Chastain doesn't work for the film I'm making, so I'm cutting it. As an actor, I would probably go ballistic and never want to work with the guy again. But as a director, again, to me, he's just doing stuff other people aren't doing. And I'm saying, man, that takes guts. It takes guts to take somebody who's a really good talent and just in journalism, when we're writing, we call it killing our babies, right? You have some line that you love in your story and it's, that's a great turn of phrase, but it just doesn't work for the story. So you cut it out. So that aspect doesn't bother me as a viewer. And again, I just think he's so established himself, particularly early on, that when he achieves what I think he's going for, when he achieves that masterpiece, it's just so good. And we talked about it, Badlands, Days of Heaven, Thin Red Line, The New World, Tree of Life. I mean, I think all of those, I would call all of those masterpieces. And I don't think there's a lot of directors out there that have that body of work that they can turn to. Maybe he just started cranking out films a little too quickly, because there was a point where it was always at least 5 years between movies. And
and he was gone for a good decade or more in between too. So there were definitely points where he just kind of went away. And so
between the New World, right? And then 2011, The Tree of Life, and then he's been like 2012, 2015, 2017, and they all like. It's I don't know if it's me, but all those 3 movies that I mentioned, they bleed, like they blend together, like it's like the same thing. Right. So that's my problem with those films, like the recent ones, until the last one last year. And
it's probably easier to make those films too when you don't need to create a set. You just let's go to a party, let's take all our cameras, we're going to the beach, we'll shoot at the beach. Like we don't need craft services, we don't need this, we're not spending money. We just got to have a cinematographer. Which, by the way, let's talk about that. Emmanuel Lubezki, a man who made Gravity, The Revenant, Birdman, Sleepy Hollow. I mean, some great films, and he's the guy who's running around next to Terrence as he goes, get that lady over there, get that dress, make sure to focus on that teddy bear. And you're like, what? I mean, but he must have been like, well, this is art or something that.
Yeah, this is Terrence Malick. Let's do it. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. And I was just remembering, Christopher Plummer was the one who said, get a writer to Terrence Malick, because he's like, I don't understand it. Of course, he was in a New World too. So it's one of those things where you're like, well, I understand it, but it is kind of off the track there. And like, as I mentioned too, they're not making that money. And, to use another analogy with a baby is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater too, when it comes to some of these films. So just because you can shoot something doesn't mean it's art. If I walk around a tree and it's breezy on me and I look, contemplative, doesn't mean that I'm creating art. Maybe I just have to burp. Like, I don't know what's going to happen.
You're in the set of a Terrence Malick film, Derek. Come on.
Right. Maybe that's the way I have to go. Maybe that's the way I have to go. All right. Well, let's wrap this part up in this then. And I'm just going to go with this. And this is my final thought here. Both of you have really good thoughts. And as much, I actually lean a little bit more towards. Actually, I lean both you guys. At the end of the day, I'm sorry, but the thing is, this is a director that you have to kind of go into knowing what you're gonna get, because if you're going in for art, you're art. It's not gonna be your conventional movie, and maybe that's why he made Badlands and a couple of those films first, to show I could do something amazing. Maybe that's the way Michael Bay came back for Pain and Gain, to show that I'm not just about explosions and cars flying off cliffs and stuff. So maybe that's the way he kind of set himself up, so he can kind of do this other thing too. And no one else does it as good as he does. He kind of captures these moments, and you can't say it isn't emotionally based, because it's all based on feelings. And there must be something to it, because all actors with those huge names are still going back to him. If they go back to him, especially Christian Bale, they must see something in the process or the moment or the art that maybe some other people don't see. So this is one of those things where it's just like, he's not hurting anyone. So let's just let him go. Let him go do it. Yeah. If some celebrity wants to jump on and be part of this thing, and then jump in and be cut out of a movie, that's up to them. It's not a problem. We do know that he can be a good director. Is he one right now? I think it's based on what you're looking for, I think, is my end result. I just don't see A Hidden Life, like you mentioned, was a way better than Song to Song and Knight of Cups, which as much as I see points in there where I do enjoy them, I also just think I'm not getting this time back in my life. Like, this is just one of those things where I understand what he's trying to do. I don't want to get on this bus. I don't want to go with you where you're going. So I agree with Forrest in everything. My point is that he's just, it's a thing about consistency. And personally, as a fan, because I go to him, because like Forrest said, all of his earlier films, and he's a talented filmmaker, and he has a really marked style. So I go to him as a fan. But it's more about consistency for me to say Terrence Malick is a great director. For me, at least, it's more about being consistent. Because if you have 20 films and you have 2 films that maybe are really, really good, I wouldn't consider you a great director, a master, a masterpiece every time you do a film. So, but if you have like 7 films and 4 or 5 are in the conversation, then for me, you're like a great, because it's consistency, especially going through decades. So, but he's really talented, and I if he comes out with a film next year or in 2 years, I go to it, because I know his style, and I like his style. I like his attitude and just being all over the place, and surprising me. But there has to be a stronger story there with all that he has as far as talent. Right. Well, and I mean, the best way to put it, and for people out there, is he started as red licorice and he somehow became black licorice. So you really have to like black licorice to really want to taste it, eat it. We all know that taste. So, well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. Before I let you go, very quickly, what are you watching? What should people tune into? Let's start with you, Fico, first. What are you watching right now? What should people watch?
Right now I watched for review Bad Education with Hugh Jackman and
so good.
Alison Janney for HBO. I think it comes out this Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good. I liked it a lot. With the director, I forgot his name, but the first movie was Thoroughbreds, which I liked also. I also watched for Friday. It comes out on Netflix. Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. All the choreography and all the action sequences are awesome. The other stuff in between and the villains and the background for the characters, that's not so much, but you can enjoy it for that because it's like, let's say when Chris Hemsworth goes John Wick style and stuff like mode, right. It's awesome because if you're looking for that, you're going to like it. And also watching Westworld on Sundays, which I like really good. And it just got renewed for a 4th season and it's good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a big sports fan. There's nothing live. So I'm tuning in on ESPN for The Last Dance. I grew up on Michael Jordan and the Bulls. I've been suffering since he retired, so sure. I'm getting my nostalgia, fix with the Last Dance, the 10-part series on ESPN. That the 3rd part I think comes on Sunday, so that's what I'm watching right now.
Very cool. Forrest, what are you watching? What should people watch?
I got to say, I've been watching a lot of TV streaming shows since the quarantine, less movie-wise. I've been watching some classics, like just revisiting things that I love with my son, like Spinal Tap, and just watched The Man with No Name trilogy. So film-wise, I've been doing that. But really, I've been watching a lot of TV. I love Picard because I'm a big Star Trek nerd. So I think for anybody who loves Star Trek, The Next Generation, if you haven't delved into Picard yet, I mean, boy, it just feels like a class reunion or something going back with all these characters. I like the Hulu show, Little Fires Everywhere with Kerry Washington. That's of course in its run, hasn't played all the way out yet. Having a lot of fun with that one. Those are the two that really stand out with me. So watching a lot of classics and then Picard and Little Fires Everywhere. Love both of those.
I think all those are fantastic choices. I will agree on Bad Education. I saw that at Toronto Film Festival, and that's one of my favorite films. Hugh Jackman is so good in it. It's so layered. It's very good. So if you're at HBO, please check that out. Extraction, I also agree with you on. It could be a new vehicle for him, maybe a way to move forward with this character and do some more great stuff. We don't know. We don't know how the film ends. There's some questionable things at the end, so we don't know what's happening. But this is the movie that Chris Hemsworth should have had instead of Black Hat. Remember after he got off, how hot he was after Thor, and he had the horrible black hat, and then essentially, like, let's put him in the cupboard. We won't take him out unless he has a hammer in his hand. And this is the first movie in a while that shows he can do something. Yeah. As we know, Men in Black International was also a big mistake on many, many fronts. So, but that's a different argument for a different day. I'm not going to get into that now. But this is an action movie that shows. I mean, he's a big guy. He's a muscly guy. He should be the next Stallone / Schwarzenegger / and so he should be that guy next. And I think this is going to be his foray into this world, and I very much look forward to seeing more from him on that. On the other side, I will say that I am enjoying everything out of CBS. Picard was fantastic. Discovery is such a great show. It's still free for people to stream right now if you want to get there. I actually just watched the Harley Quinn cartoon on DC Universe, which is crazy and dark and very, very rated R. And then the last thing that I'll say is this: I just got done reading Val Kilmer's memoir, I'm Your Huckleberry. Oh, really? And it is an interesting read. It is interesting because it's kind of in the way he talks. And of course, this is the man who lost his voice. He had cancer in his throat. And as you read it, it's fun. It's interesting. It's almost like one of his characters just kind of talking to you over and over again. And it's just a conscious stream of what he's thinking and how, who he wants to be and some things I didn't know about him. And he goes through everything from, of course, Tombstone to Top Secret to Batman and all those things. And even some of his relationships too. But it is all a little light. Like, it didn't go as deep as I wanted it to. I really want to know him a little bit more, but who knows? Maybe there'll be more coming out. And a little bit felt like he apologized a lot, like somebody who has gone through a thing where you almost died and you want to apologize and make sure you're good with everyone else. So it felt a little bit like that too. But it is a good read, and I feel like if you're a fan of Val Kilmer, you'll like the book too. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you very, very much. Right before we go, let's just let them know where to find you. Forrest, let's start with you. Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me at forresthartman.com, or I got all the social media stuff, like you say, up there at Forrest Hartman on Facebook and all the normal places, Twitter. So any of that's pretty easy to look me up. Google me if you can get it.
All right, Fico, how about you? Where can they find you?
You can find me on social media under at Fico Cangiano, and you can find me at CineExpressPR and CineExpressPR.com. You can find the reviews and stuff, interviews and everything there. Also, we started with the quarantine. We started doing a new podcast for Cine Express. It's Cine Express Throwback. And we, a couple of friends of mine, we started going down the alphabet. With like draft picks, and we're doing each week a classic, like Forrest was saying about watching classics, and we've been enjoying doing that. So we started with Numbers, 2001, then we did Alien, then Back to the Future, Casablanca, then Dazed and Confused, and the last one was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Right. And with the F, we did Fight Club yesterday, so you guys can check that out. I mean, it's in Spanish, but if someone's watching that can listen in Spanish, and you can enjoy that. Cine Express Throwback in every.
Well, you know, everyone has a lot of time right now to. Everyone has time to learn a new language.
You can learn Spanish. Yeah. you got time to that for that.
That's the way to go. Trust me. That was my first thought. Is next time I'm going to quarantine with someone who knows like 8 languages and somebody else who could teach me how to bake or something. I don't know. We'll figure out some other hobbies so I can make my pandemic hobby lobby, I guess, and have someone to teach me all these new things. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. You're Wrong, Here's Why, episode 6, fully a success, and I thank you very much. We found out which is better, Hellboy 2 or Hellboy, which of course everything's an opinion, and Terrence Malick, which is very much whatever flavor you want to taste when it comes to films too. Forrest, Francisco, thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the invitation.